So when it comes to logo design, there's a lot of mistakes that separate a pro from an amateur or somebody that's just starting out getting their feet work in logo design or the logo design field and a professional that charges top dollar for logos and branding work. Obviously, those are two separate different things. I'll cover that in another video. But in this video, I want to cover 5 mistakes that both pros and amateurs make and help you take your logo design skill set to the next level. So without any further delay, let's jump on over to the computer and we'll run through these real quick. Okay, so first things first, we are going to talk about kerning and spacing in a logo. So I have 2 identical logos here, or seemingly identical logos here, both representing a carrot with the business name carrot underneath. And you can't obviously see any differences here because for everything that you see on screen, they're identical until we move down and expose the little tagline here, organic bakery. So the issue that I want to portray to you here, or 2 issues really. One is spacing. The text organic bakery is far too close to the carrot text above it. So when it's zoomed in this far or blown up this far, nice and large on a screen, it doesn't look too bad. Representation's not bad, and the legibility isn't bad at all. But in comparison to the one on the right hand side here, where you have better kerning, better spacing between the letters, and more thought's gone into the spacing between the actual elements, when you zoom out or shrink down these logos and have them reproduced at smaller sizes, etc., you'll see that the legibility is maintained the smaller you go. I'm not going to zoom out too far here, but you can see that there is a major difference between how the words start getting, or the letters, characters start getting jumbled together and become difficult to read, as far as the version on the right hand side where it's spaced out and a little bit more white space thought has been used for positioning of elements. Okay, second on the list, we have a logo here that reads Arrow, Aerospace Propulsion. And this is probably a good example of one of the first things that I covered as far as the white space or the distribution of elements, the spacing between elements. But the main focus is using the logo as a letter or an element to the actual business name. And it's a massive no-no. Really, you should not be doing this. It's super old school, like 80s, 90s. Even then, it was somewhat frowned upon. Just don't do it. This sort of like negative white space here for the A isn't even lined up to the R and O for arrow. And of course, the aerospace propulsion, the kerning on this is pretty tight, and the white space or the spacing between elements is pretty bad too. You'd probably want to actually move these elements. Whoops. You'd probably want to move these elements over. Why can't I move these? What's going on? There we go. You'd probably want to move these elements over and create more dynamic space there between them, or maybe stack them and have the A. But my solution to this is basically to remove that whole situation and scroll down here. See if we can get both of these on screen. Zoom out a little bit. So my solution is to basically include the correct text, I should say. There's a T on the end of that. And move the actual logo or icon, the actual visual element, to the side and create some distinction here to separate entities. And of course, the tracking, or the kerning, I should say, not the tracking, has been adjusted, hasn't actually been outlined. I just typed the font in there, but you can see that it reads a lot better. And at smaller sizes, that will obviously reproduce better as well. So you can see that the elements on the top version are just far too crammed together. The icon there representing the A just doesn't really make any visual sense. In theory, it might be a cool idea, but it's never really a good idea whatsoever. It's just confusing to people. Having that segmentation where it's a completely separate entity is better, because now the text stands on its own, or without the text, the actual icon of the logo stands on its own as well. Okay, third one on the list here for this Volpus or Volpass mockup is going to be the distribution of lines, or the thickness of lines, or the weight of lines, however you want to refer to them. When you have lines or elements in a logo, you want them to have some thickness to them where they reproduce well when they're scaled down or reproduced at a smaller size. And you don't want to lose them. So having very thin lines in a logo, one, they will get lost when they are reproduced at smaller sizes. And two, if they don't match the weight of other elements, specifically the text or other elements in the logo, it starts to feel weird. Now, it probably looks okay to anyone that's somewhat new to logo design. You're probably looking at this thinking, yeah, it looks all right, like it's not a bad logo, etc. But if I compare it to the second one here, you can see the difference is probably night and day. Now the first one, hopefully, I say hopefully, emphasis on hopefully. Hopefully the first one up here just doesn't look right anymore, and this one below looks like it has more punch and more weight behind it, more balance, etc. And that's because I've tried to essentially get the thickness of these as close as possible to the weight of the text that reads Vulpus down here. But I don't want to overwhelm the looker by having it be the same. They are very close, but they are not the same. So, okay. Now for the fourth one on the list, hopefully you guys are looking at this and thinking that it's disgusting, and you'd be absolutely right. It's dreadful. So this is, I kind of stole this from somewhere, I forget, but this is a logo for, I'm assuming, a fictitious company here, Pure Life, and it's doing a lot of things wrong. So if you design logos like this, take note. I'm not picking fault, I'm not having a go, I'm trying to educate you. Don't do this. One, there's too many things going on here. So you've got two different fonts in two different colors. Now using two different colors is totally okay. I'd probably stop at 3 or 4 at absolute most. Don't go beyond 4. You're going to start getting really crazy and confusing with multiple colors. So this does a couple things well, and it segregates the word pure and life by the colors. However, it uses two different fonts that are not even complementary to each other. They're very contrasting in a bad way. And it uses this really odd, like, masked gradient patch effect in the water droplet. That's never going to be seen by anyone unless it's reproduced hugely, like on a massive scale, like maybe on the side of a truck or something. And second, or third or fourth, whatever point I've made now, it uses this terrible, complex, like, whirlpool with a water droplet in the middle that's not finished correctly. Like, there's weird shapes that aren't clipping correctly or are clipping into weird things. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but it's just not right. You always want to simplify a logo down as much as possible. So the point here is to simplify things down as much as possible. And when I show you the version that I created based off of this, you might think, "Ew, that's really simple," and that's the point. We've gone for a formal font here, like they've sort of tried to have in theirs, a somewhat formal but sans serif font. So we've gone with a slight serif font here, segmented the pure and life with colors, and then just used the icon of a water droplet with a little shine on there with a white shine, and simplified the entire thing. Now, you might not necessarily like the logo, but it is a process of simplifying and making it memorable, and that's something that people overlook on a constant basis. Sometimes logo design isn't necessarily about making the prettiest logo or the most artistic logo. At the end of the day, design is communication and it's not art, and you have to get across the point as, I guess, clearly and concisely as possible. And try not to be too clever, but if you can, and you can be clever in a simple way, definitely do it. So, fourth one here is simplify, simplify, simplify. Keep things simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And don't do anything too intricate or over the top, because this logo at top here would be far less memorable than seeing this logo here with Pure Life with just the water droplet. So keep that in mind with your logo designs moving forwards. Okay, last but not least, you're not really going to see... This one was kind of hard for me to represent, so I'm going to have to kind of speak it to you instead of show you, but you'll see when I reveal the second version of this logo. And that is font choice. Again, there's an issue with the kerning in this text. The A sits far too far away from the D here for this serif font, and I could probably space the rest of the text here correctly as well. But let's focus on the actual font here. Now, if I were to tell you that this was a media company, a modern media company, this would probably seem far too formal now, right? So this is just made for a fictitious company, Semida, which I'm just pulling out of my head here as a modern media company, or perhaps maybe even a communications company. But the aesthetic of the text doesn't match the emotion that I would be going for something that's modern. This is far too formal for me. And this round sort of like safe, secure shape made up by the circles here doesn't contrast well with this text. Maybe something like FEMA's logo, where it's, you know, sort of a crest and has a serif font. That makes sense because it's formal, it's governmental, it's supposed to exude a bit of authority and formality. But in contrast to the logo below, where the kerning has been adjusted a little bit, just very quickly, and the thought has been made for a more modern, holistic, and sort of cozier approach, friendlier approach, I suppose, to the logo design. Makes more sense in comparison to the serif font. So we've gone with a sans serif font here. We've still kept the sharp edges. Of course, we want to keep that legibility and have that separation. I suppose I could have spent more time on it, picking a rounded font. But at the same time, I feel like the contrast between the two speaks better. So the point of this one is basically pick the right fonts. If you're going for something very formal or very vogue, then a serif font is probably a better choice for you. But if you're going for something modern, holistic, warmer, friendlier, then of course you want to pick something round. You want to pick something sans serif. It's all very unique to each project, of course. Each logo is and should be as unique as the business itself. But yeah, last but not least, make sure that you consider fonts or typefaces are a major player when it comes to logos. So anyway, hopefully you guys learned something, took something away from this. If you enjoy it, please feel free to smack that like button and help spread the knowledge for other budding designers or someone that might need to see this. And if you want to stay up to date and get more tips and tricks on things like logo design, branding, and just general graphic design stuff, feel free to subscribe. Until next time, I will catch you in the next video. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.